Welcome to the Nick Blevins Family Ministry Podcast. Our goal is to help you maximize your church's potential. You'll hear from top leaders in children's, student, and family ministry about the principles and practices they use. Now here's your host, Nick Blevins.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 198 of the podcast. In this episode, I talk with my friend Andrea Goslee about connecting with families online. One of the things that has been the hardest, I think, for churches during this season where we're not meeting in person, or some churches have started meeting in person again. But during that time when we weren't gathering in person, kids ministry was one of the most affected. For all the leaders I talked to, children's ministry and the engagement there with whatever content you were putting out, that was the area that was probably the most impacted. So Andrea, I know for her, one of the things she thought about was, yes, let's put some great content out there for families, but also how do we connect with families? And so you're going to hear all the ideas that they've put into place, a unique way that they're trying to track that. And we'll talk about all of that and more. And as usual, you can get the links and notes and all that at nickblevins.com/episode 198. Now, speaking of online and engaging and all of that, there's something brand new that I want to let you know about. It's a new course that I've created called the New Digital Church. It's going to be a 10-week live course where we'll have live sessions every week. And it's all about taking online strategies and applying them to our churches so that we can reach and connect more people. We have to change our approach, right? After COVID-19, I think all of us recognize that online engagement has declined after the first couple months, and what we've been doing hasn't worked so far. And we need to try some new things. Doesn't mean they're always going to work, right? But we need to try some new things. And something that has been taking place for years is using different strategies and tactics to reach people online. I have used that. This podcast is one example of that. I have used that for the past 10 years and learned it and invested time in it so that I could help serve church leaders. And so I want to help take those same principles and practices and strategies and apply them to the church. And so the New Digital Church is all about that. It'll be 10 weeks live starting on August 6th. So it's just a short time to sign up. By the time you listen to this, it's about 2 weeks that you have to register and sign up. It's $97 per church. So I'd love to, ideally, if your church has multiple staff, you're going to want to get multiple staff involved because the things we're going to talk about span multiple roles in most church staff teams. So we're going to talk all about things like web presence and social media and ads and communication. We're also going to talk about how to apply it to children's ministry, to student ministry, and all of that and more. So you can learn about that at nickblevins.com/new digital church. Or again, if you just check the show notes, you can see that there. But we're going to start in just over 2 weeks. So it's just a short time to register. So head to nickblevins.com/new digital church if you're interested. But now let's jump into my conversation with Andrea Goslee, all about how she has connected with families over the last number of months, as well as what they're going to do in the future. Well, today we have my friend Andrea Goslee on the podcast. Welcome, Andrea.
Thanks so much, Nick.
So tell us about you, your family, and your church before we jump in.
Well, I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I have been here for, I think, 28 years with my husband, and we have 2 kids that are both college age, kind of in those later college years, trying to figure out what that's going to look like this year. So we've been hanging out at Rivers Crossing Community Church now for 12 years. I've been directing the River Kids program there.
Awesome. And what size roughly is Rivers Crossing? I know, but for people listening.
About 3,500, but right now, that might look a little bit
who knows
different,
right now?
But...
Yeah, before COVID. And how many kids were coming total preschool through like 5th grade or whatever on an average weekend? Again, pre-COVID.
Right. Yeah. On an average weekend, we had somewhere between 650 and 700 kids. Yeah. That was sixth grade and under.
Okay. Well, I got to start out asking what all of us probably want to hear, which is, what are you doing online now as it relates to children's ministry? Because your church isn't gathering in person right now, right?
We actually gathered for the first time, just adults, on July 12th.
Gotcha. So no children's ministry. And correct. Did kids? Okay, so I have like 16 other questions. I didn't know this. I don't think I knew that. Did kids have kids in the service? What was the percent? Like how many showed up? That was your first week. So like, what percent of people you think showed up?
Yeah, so our auditorium hosts about 900 people, and prior to COVID, we were having 3 services. So we only have capacity for about 300 on a Sunday now. And we had, I think at the first service around 250, I think we're about 175 in the middle and maybe close to 100 at the the last service. So
you did all three. See, I've seen some churches will pare back and do two or whatever. You did three.
yeah, and this coming weekend we're just going to do two as well, just the first two.
Gotcha, because you're going to pare back, and still no kids ministry. So did you feel like you saw a lot of kids in the service, or I've heard a lot of people say, yeah, those families aren't coming as much, because sitting in the service with their kids, they're just not going to do it.
Yeah, I actually counted the kids, and there were 43 total between three services. So that's not very many.
No, and that's probably it. It's people saying, you know what, I'm not. I was just having a conversation with our elementary director, and somebody she knows that they did like kind of like another venue for parents, or actually, no, I'm the one that heard somebody else did it. I told her that, and she said, I do have a hard time imagining parents getting their kids up, getting them dressed, getting them ready, going to church to sit in a different room and try to get them to be quiet, during a service. It's like, that's true.
Well, I actually just proposed to our leadership. I said, if we're not going to use the 12:30 service, how about we have a family service there? So, I mean, it's an idea right now, just a tiny seed, but saying we could have the same worship experience, use the same production team, but then instead of having the pastor do the message, we use our elementary volunteers to be the host, the storyteller, do something interactive between the parent and the kid, maybe send them home with like their small group activities as they leave or something.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, that reminds me of like what we used to do with kid stuff, a family experience, or even now, with Jingle Jam. And that you could see totally that's basically what it was like before. Now they'd be socially distanced, right? And so the capacity is lower, but getting them together and sitting through that is normal. But the idea of sitting through a service, and if I had to pick, I'd probably take the family service option over kids in the auditorium as a parent. I'd rather be in that other room with other kids that are also making noise,
Right.
But it's hard. It does feel like a lot of like, none of them are great options, right? So, so you've done 1 week. We'll have to talk some more as you get further down the road with that. And it sounds like, if I did the math right, your attendance was similar to a lot of churches where week one, they're getting 15 to 20%, 25 maybe of the attendance they would normally see. And then, they kind of grow from there, but it's not like a lot of people I talk to are getting 2/3 or 3/4, they still grow to like half or something like that. Well, with online, what are you all doing with children's ministry online? Has anything changed? Is the same play you run since it started? What's that look like?
Yeah, so we have been posting since COVID started, the online videos. We use Orange Curriculum. So we do have a tab on our website for parents to access a video for preschool, elementary, or preteen. They can also access their parent cues and things there, and a resource as well. Outside of that, we're also hosting online small groups for kids. We've been doing that all along using Zoom, doing breakout rooms for different age groups, which has been really successful for us. Still a pretty low percentage compared to what we had before, but we started out pretty strong. Summer, obviously, a lot of people are vacationing, so that's a little bit lower. Mm-hmm. And then outside of that, just really engaging parents. We added a parent Facebook group, and so we've been engaging them a lot through that as well.
Well, and you and I were talking before we recorded, you don't know the numbers of views you're getting on the kids' content, which based on all of my conversations with other people and our church, you don't want to. So just, stay, ignorance is bliss, right? No, some churches are having some success there. I mean, I think I told you I know of one church that could even come close to comparing their kids' content views to like, how many kids they used to see in person. Every other church, it's like a 6th, an 8th, something like that. But your focus hasn't been on that anyway. It's been on connection. So you mentioned the small groups. I'd love to hear, I remember when you were first starting it out, we talked about potentially doing small groups for kids virtually. We did that with our students. We never did with kids ministry. And for us, some of it was we didn't feel it would be successful with how overwhelmed parents felt with like schooling at home and Zoom calls with that and work and everything else. And then there was a thought that like, well, summer maybe, because maybe they'll get, I don't know that that's the vibe anymore here. So tell us like how's it going there, and what's the engagement like, and how are you doing it? Is it, you said it's breakout rooms, so they all come in and you spread them out. What's that look like?
Yeah, so we started, I'd say the second or third week of COVID, we decided we would start with preteens because we knew that they could handle the computer, they could mute themselves, things like that. We weren't sure how the younger kids would do. So we actually did it just with preteens through May. So what happens is we actually still use our volunteers. So it's been a great way to continue to engage volunteers with kids. So staff will come on the call, volunteers come on the call. We, do our rally as we would have done on a Sunday, and then we send them off to their rooms. So we divided them up. I think originally we had about 6 rooms that they were going into based on their grade, 4th, 5th, or 6th, girls and boys. So they would be divided up in those rooms. And so we would have, anywhere between, 6 or 10 kids that would come onto that call with their leaders. Now, once we headed into summer, we knew that was going to scale back a lot. And we also wanted to add the younger kids and get them involved. And so we were just calling it Summer Sundays. And so we have a separate call for preteens, a separate call for elementary, which is K through 3rd grade. And then we just divide up boys and girls in both of those calls. And actually the younger call is K1s in one group and 2nd, 3rd in another group. So Summer Sundays are a little bit different because in the regular school year, they were just hanging out and doing some of the small group activities. We tried to make it a little bit more interactive with them. But in summer, we start off with a game. So each week we have a game winner, something that they have to do, go get to participate in some game, something common you would have in your house, like a spoon or something. And then we get a winner. And so we actually are delivering prizes to their houses that, this is the big push of trying to get kids online is you're going to get a summer prize. So then we'll post that in our Facebook groups and things like that so people can say, hey, this is going on. This is really fun. And our staff are actually leading the game, but then the volunteers are then continue to lead the small group activities. And we've themed out each week to be, we just made up some things like this week coming up, it's Bring Your Pet Day. We're literally, having
Awesome.
them bring their pet online. If they don't have a real pet, bring a stuffed pet. Things like that. Our last week, we're going to do Christmas in July and actually deliver prizes to every kid that comes. So that's a surprise. So hopefully they won't hear this.
Yeah. I don't think they're listening.
No, probably not.
5 listeners. I don't think any of them are those kids. That's awesome. So there's some great ideas. And what time did I catch? What time you're doing them on Sunday? These calls?
So we've been doing it in between the service times. So our services are at 9 and 10:45. So this call is only half an hour, and it's on Sunday from 10:15 to 10:45. So that way, the original thought was we wanted to make sure we had volunteers available and they could go to the service too, and the parents could help their kids get set up, and it wouldn't interrupt even if they were going, doing their church together or something.
Yeah, that's good. And you're still putting the content out too, so they're going to watch that at some point. Yep. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. It sounds like it's not as connected to the video for that week or whatever they were going to watch.
Well, it actually is. The games aren't, but the rest of we use the curriculum to get our ideas from that. And so we do still talk about that content. But it's not determined on if you watched the video or if you didn't. So if they haven't, we're always recommending, hey, make sure you watch this. Gotcha. And if they have, it's just kind of what would happen in your normal small group if you had been in the building.
Do you publish it like on Sunday morning, or is the kids' stuff out a little earlier? Like I've heard of one church doing Saturday morning, the kids' content is out. I think they're doing something like you're doing, some kind of live online component.
We send out a constant contact email to our parents with the link for them to connect into that small group. The content that's on the website, it gets posted on the weekend. Yeah, I think it's typically on there on Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Well, you mentioned, but when we were talking about this call, you mentioned you had a virtual preteen camp too. So what did that look like?
We did. Actually, I would say out of everything we've done in the last 4 months, that's been the highlight. And it was definitely a huge win for us. I had this idea to do this core and preteen camp. We've had preteen camp, for several years that we do it overnight with preteens. It's like a huge thing they're always excited about. And we actually got a really big turnout for that. And it was a 3-hour event on Zoom, believe it or not. So we had over 50 preteens that were hanging out with us that night, 2 leaders per room, lots of staff. So there were close to like 80 or 90 people on our call, which seemed like a lot to me, compared to what we've been doing before.
Sure.
But here's how it went. Everybody came on. We started out, we had one of our staff spouses, he became RC3 man. So he was in this green suit. So nobody knew who he was. And he was actually on the Zoom call, but he was driving around town, showing up at preteens' houses. So that he'd like knock on the door, and they're on this call,
Yeah.
right? And they come out and they're like, what's going on? To do some different surprises, like shoot confetti at them. The last one we were doing sparklers and things like that. So that was super fun. But, we started as a large group, but everybody pretty soon went into their breakout rooms. They did 3 big activities. So it's been a while. Let me see if I can remember everything. We actually had them choose a color. So, their age group was assigned a color. So the first thing that they had to do was, go around their house and basically dress head to toe in that color, and then take a picture of your group. So we voted on that later, which one was the best, color team. And then we deliver prizes, later in the week. They had to build a fort. So this was the place that they were going to hang out for the night. And something that was cool, which I didn't anticipate, were some of the kids actually, they're like, have a preteen friend that they've been hanging out with or whatever. So they were actually on the call together and doing those things together. So it was, even though they, didn't get to be all together as a group, some of them did hang out together for that night. Our whole theme was about, being a light for Jesus. And so they made a Be Kind mural. So they had to go outside and like collect a lot of supplies, like in their yard and things to make it. And it didn't have to be something like you had to glue. Like preteen boys aren't going to glue things, but they were just taking sticks and like making it. And so then they would have to pick a person from their team that made the best fort, made the best mural. And then we all came back together and we did a vote. And we did a poll to see the winners. So then those people would actually get prizes the next week. So then after that, we actually did a virtual escape room, which I think that was by far one of their favorite things that they did. I have a very talented person on my team who created this whole idea to do an escape room. And so she did it through the Google Drive, and I could maybe tell you more details later if you need that. But so each room went back into their small groups, and their leader was just basically sitting on the page, and then they had to tell them what to do, to click on different things, to find clues, to fill in the 5 clues, to see who could break out first. So the first group got out in like 12 minutes, and then there was a boys group that took like 22 minutes.
So they're clicking on things where?
Well, so on the Zoom page, so that the leader would share their screen.
Yeah.
And there are like different pictures and things on the screen. So the leader's just sitting there, and the kids are like, "Oh, click on the picture."
Oh, and the leader would do it. Okay, gotcha.
And then they would do what it was. And so they click on that. When you went to that, it was like maybe a puzzle, or it might be like a math problem or something they'd have to figure out to get the clue to go back to the main page and put it in there.
Was it hosted on a website, or was it like PowerPoint, or like what was were they actually running it in?
Yeah, I think she's hosted it on a website.
That's cool.
That's the part. I don't know all the details of how she actually made it.
Yeah.
But it is super fun.
That's awesome. That's cool.
And then, so once we finished up that, we gave them a little break, told them to get a snack. And then we came back for the last hour for like a whole large group experience. We had pre-filmed a campfire worship. So I actually have like a little fire pit in my backyard, and had some people over, and we filmed like 3 worship songs with, socially distanced singing and guitar. And we did that. We had one of our communicators from our preteen area come and then talk to them. And then at the end, we actually asked them, to turn on we had them turn off the lights, but we had them turn on the light in their fort if they wanted to accept Christ. And we had 6 kids that gave their life to Christ. So that's why I feel like that was the biggest win for us from the whole summer. So.
That's awesome. That's cool. You also did a drive-through, right? And walk through, at your parking lot at the church. So tell us about what you did there, and like what was the idea from that. We did a similar thing too, to really focus on the kickoff of the summer series. We use Orange Curriculum as well, and we gave out bags and had some stuff for summer. But tell me what you all did.
Sure. I mean, I'm in Ohio, so the weather is very unpredictable here. We've had lots of crazy pop-up thunderstorms, so it didn't end up as we planned, but it was still a great event. Our original plan was it was a combination of a drive-through / walk-through experience. And how I got to that decision was I had asked in our Facebook group, the parents a poll, like, would you prefer to have, something you can do at home? And everyone was like, no. Would you prefer to have something where you come and drive through at the church? And most people were okay about that, but they really wanted something where they could walk through with their kids was like the biggest. And I was surprised about that. But if I could create a touch-free experience for them, that's what they wanted. So we decided we would make our parking lot is pretty large. So we designated each part of the parking lot as a specific age group and a zone. But each person would come, they would drive into our parking lot and they'd drive through the whole experience no matter what age kid you had. So when you first came in, we had our welcome team volunteers. And I'll just say one thing. This was the one way that we were really excited to be able to engage volunteers that haven't been able to come back yet to the church. So we were excited they could do that. So the welcome team, they were there. They were shouting as each car came in. They had flags. We did a giant, we used pipe and drape poles, but we attached all these beach balls. So that was kind of like the entryway. So the first zone they went to was for preschool and nursery kids. So all the volunteers had bubble wands. We had a big boat with our worship volunteers for preschool that were in there. So it was kind of a nautical theme. And then they drove around to the back of the building. That's where we had the preteen. And I think this is what the kids liked the most. That was really our splash zone. And so all the volunteers had these super soakers and they were spraying the cars as they went by. And we had this one family that came by for the second time and they had their kids standing up out of the sunroof. And then we had
that's great.
A dad and his daughter came through on their bike and they were just drenched.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hilarious.
That's great.
So those were the preteen volunteers and they drove through that. And then the last part was supposed to be the really cool walkthrough part, the beach. So we bought all these blue tarps to line the parking lot. We were going to have this tent, which is like the surf shop. And so they would get out and they would walk through this touchless experience where they were going to find the letters for the word faith. And we were actually going to have live fish and all this stuff. But unfortunately, on that day, we spent, 2 hours setting it up in the heat of the day. I mean, it was really hot, 90 for us, really hot, 90 something degrees. So 2 hours we set it up. And then all of a sudden, so we had pretty substantial things out there, like stanchions holding things down and the buckets on the tents and all this. But this wind picked up and totally blew it away all down the parking lot.
Oh, that's
and
awful.
We were chasing it down to the road. So we had to kind of revise and it ended up just being a drive-through experience. So the beach, we had to transition to the side of the building where they just continued to drive through. But then we handed out push-up pops to every car that came through. And we had our worship team out there dancing. And then we used one more stanchion that we had this prayer is said a prayer for your family for, peace and protection and things, which was kind of fun.
Yeah. We, ours, we didn't do a lot of the same things you did, but ours was mostly just about getting the summer bag that we're going to give them. And we did celebrate them and had, some of that kind of fun and some different elements and all that. But there were tears, there were people crying because they hadn't seen other people in so long and just happy to connect again and kids. It was a really cool thing. And I know one other thing you're getting ready to do is a family box that ties into the series. And actually, our friend Kenny Conley is about to do the same thing at his church. He's about to do this. And some of it is when we did our bag for summer, some of the ideas I know Kenny's doing are similar things that we did. But tell us about that box and what's going in it and what's the hope with it?
Yeah, sure. So our city actually did a really cool thing a couple of weeks ago. It was called a unified prayer walk. So there were 58 churches that all came together and we met downtown in Cincinnati and they had a combined worship band and it was socially distanced, wear mask and all of that. But we started with worship and then and prayer. And then we walked from the river downtown to kind of the center of downtown. And, we prayed along the way and we ended in worship again. So it was called the Unified Prayer Walk. So our church is actually just doing a 2-week series called Unified, just because there's been so much, controversy going on in the country right now. And so we really wanted a way to be able to help our parents talk to their kids about what's going on in the world. So we decided we would make a unified take home for them. So it's just a bag that includes, a few fun things, but also just a couple activities, ways that parents can talk to their kids about how to treat others. Basically that's what it is. So we're giving them like a unity bracelet that they can make. So we're giving them the string and the instructions of it's kind of like a friendship bracelet with more like multicultural colors. We're giving them some Play-Doh that they can use to, create like, this is how God created me, and show like different features for themselves, and then maybe noticing features in other people in your world. Giving them some candy. You can't give out anything I feel like, to an elementary kid without candy. Plus, we have a whole bunch left in our prize
Yeah,
zone
that's true.
that we need to get rid of.
Don't let it expire.
Just saying like, we miss your sweet smile. And we're also giving them a unified family box. So the box, it's just literally a paper box, and inside a bunch of slips of paper. Because for a long time, for about 3 months, we did this campaign. It was called Radical Kindness. And each week we had a different way we were asking them to be kind to people in our world. And so it just has a lot of different ideas inside. So anytime as a family that you just want to really remember how to treat others, you can pick one out of the box and then go and do it.
Yeah. Now, the radical kindness thing, did that start before COVID, or is that something you started because of this and being disconnected? And what did it include?
Yeah, it was because of COVID, and it was really more of a social media campaign. We used our large group leaders. They would record a video each week saying, doing something kind of fun and saying who we want you to show kindness to this week. So a couple ideas, like we did show kindness to the people that collect your trash. So we would give them online maybe a coloring page that they could print out and color and put on their trash can.
Cool. And so is that continued? Is that still going, or did it kind of wrap up?
Yeah, we wrapped that up, I would say, right before we started summer. No, we kept going. I'm sorry. We kept going through Father's Day because we had done a thing for mothers, and we thought we couldn't leave out the fathers. And once we got to that point, we felt
gotcha.
But we felt like it was kind of, dying out a little bit.
Sure, like anything does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know one thing that's unique is, because again, you're focused mostly on connecting with families. That's part of why you're not even sure what the views are on your kids' content. But and all these ideas, are about that. But in addition to that, you're tracking it, which speaks to my heart. So tell us how you're tracking it and what you've found so far, and like how you're doing it.
Yeah. So right in the beginning, our pastor, he suggested that we call all of our families. And so we called everyone in the church. We've called our families a couple of times. So we have a list of all the families that attend in our ministry. And we decided, we want to see like, how are they engaging with us? So we decided if any kind of contact, whether it's, somebody, sent out a text and we got a text back from you, if we saw you in a small group, if you came to the preteen camp, if you drove through the cruise, if you engaged in our Facebook group, if you've done any of those things, then you just get a new color. So you get colored orange. That means that you've connected with us. And then we have some columns saying like, how did you connect with us? So I was happily surprised. I think we've engaged with about 35% of our families, which, that means there's still 65% of the people that really aren't calling us back, or
sure.
But hopefully those are all the people that are doing the clicks that I just don't know about.
Yeah, exactly. They're all watching, Andrea. I know it. I'm sure every one of them is watching. Unlike every other church I know of, yours has all of them watching. No, and there could be. Tracking all that is hard, but it's cool that you're trying to do it. And who knows? Maybe there are more that you're connecting with. Just somehow they don't make it into the sheet. You know what I mean? Like they are watching, and then they had a call with some of their pastor on staff because they're a small group leader, or whatever that is. And so maybe there's some other ways too. But just even to know that a little over a third of them are having real connection with the church is big, because I think a lot of people would say now, one, using online should have been part of the plan, but certainly gonna be part of the plan going forward. So like, how do we continue to figure this out? But then two, the day you're gathering in person again now, everything that you've planted through the connections the last few months is probably bearing fruit, or will, during this season when you're gathering in person again. Lots of people are going to make decisions purely based on COVID, and that's great. But there's going to be some people who, like I know when our church moved, we had like the worst move story ever. Not really, but it was really bad, where we ended up without a building for 3 months. And we lost people in that season, and that had nothing to do with a virus. We were meeting just at a different church on Saturday night, although I guess actually we didn't meet for 5 weeks in a row at the end. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about too much. It brings up too many scars. But anyhow, we lost a percentage of people that just fell off, and mostly that would be people that were early, in their journey. And so like it's good that what you're doing, because you're making some of those connections that could maybe help avoid that. Right. So that's really good. Well, last question. You mentioned the parent Facebook group in the beginning, and you started it just for this. So I'd love to hear, like, how's it going? What are you doing in there? Is the engagement good, or is it cricket sometimes? What's it like?
Well, my original vision for that was that parents would connect with each other. That hasn't quite happened yet, but they are seeing what we're posting in there more than they were just on our regular page. So they are interacting. So I was super surprised when I told you about the kindness challenge, and I said, hey, share a picture of mom with their kids. We'd love to use that for, a post that we were going to do. And there was like 100 people that posted a picture in there. They love sharing pictures about themselves. And when I did a poll, like tons of people engage with that. But I might, put like, I might just ask a question and then it might be crickets. So it's really, to me, I haven't quite figured out the secret of what's going to get their attention and what isn't. So I don't know if it's when it was posted, because it really goes out to everyone as a notification, or if it's just something that, they were interested in. Yeah. I haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, you're like, it's becoming like a online, entrepreneur, social media manager or something like that. And I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are best practices and things that work and things that don't. But hey, what connects, and that's great. Play it up and use it. And what doesn't, oh well, try something else. That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's great, that you have it, which is a good step. And again, one of those things that just you can keep forever now. You mentioned the page. You had a Facebook page, I guess. And that wasn't going as well. My preschool director, just before we are recording this, she was saying how she feels like the preschool Facebook page is like dead. And I told her how last week I heard an online entrepreneur, like business marketer type, refer to Facebook pages basically as yellow pages now. Like Facebook doesn't care about them. They don't send them traffic there. They love groups. That's what they love is groups. And he called it yellow pages. I thought that's pretty appropriate, because that's about what they're like now, especially if you're not paying for traffic. They're, it's like 10% of the people are even saying it. Cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on and talk about all this that you're doing. I love that you're just trying all this different stuff, to connect them. That's what we got to do now, right? We don't have answers. Nobody's figured this out. We just have to try different things and adapt. And so you're doing a great job with that. How can people connect with you if they want to ask a question, or maybe it's on social media or with Rivers Crossing? How can they do that?
Yeah, sure. Probably email's the easiest. I'm at agoslee@riverscrossing.com.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks again for coming on the podcast. And I look forward to hearing more about how your in-person gatherings are going, a couple months from now after you get some more under your belt. But thanks for coming on.
All right. Thanks so much. It was really fun.
Well, there you go. You got a ton of ideas there from Andrea, and the few of the action steps I thought of coming out of that interview. One is to start tracking engagement even though it's kind of hard and complex and all that. I think it's great that they're tracking engagement, figuring out who are the families that they've connected with. And the second is I would figure out, how can you serve parents in August? I mean, maybe you're listening this way down the road. Still, serving parents is helpful. But what Andrea said is so true, that now as schools are maybe not meeting in person, parents thought they were, or they are, but there's still a lot of complexities in their schedule or some kind of in between. Parents are under tremendous stress right now. So how can we serve parents in this next month? I think that was a great thought. And then the third action step I thought of actually has nothing to do with Andrea. It's about the new digital church course. All of us want to do better reaching people online. So go ahead and check out nickblevins.com/new digital church. But more than that, if maybe that's something that you feel like isn't for you, or the cost thing is a barrier, we regularly with Ministry Boost have conversations and interviews and things like that about things like meeting in person again and kids ministry. And what does that look like? Engaging online. what does that look like? I'm going to do an interview here soon with someone that we're going to share in the Ministry Boost Facebook group, because her church is probably literally the only church I know of that has a kids like views and all that on kids ministry content that is similar to what they had in person pre-COVID. Most churches I know of are nowhere near that. And so we'll probably share that on the podcast as well. So check out New Digital Church. If you want to get some other staff, jump all in and figure out how can you use different strategies and tactics online to reach more people. Or if you just want to check out some stuff for free, make sure you're in the Ministry Boost Facebook group. Just search that, look for that group, join there. And we're doing free calls and interviews and different things like that pretty much every week. And there's a lot of great information you can get there. So as usual, you can grab the show notes at nickblevins.com/episode 198. That's it for this week. We're going to have some more interviews about engagement online and all of that, which I know is tricky and it's a challenge for all of us right now. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of those. And I'll catch you next time on the Family Ministry Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Nick Blevins Family Ministry Podcast. We hope this helps you maximize your church's potential. We would love to hear stories of how you apply what you've learned. You can do that by leaving a comment on iTunes or in the show notes at nickblevins.com.